Questions orales. L'honorable.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister had a revelation. In an interview with the Halifax Chronicle Herald, he said that when people ask him for even more money from the government, he simply answers, and I quote, "The second they do so, inflation goes up by the same amount." Wow. Why had I not thought of that in the past? Spending too much money causes inflation. Incredible. Will he unveil even more revelations and say that budgets do not simply balance themselves? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the problem with the Leader of the Opposition is that he didn't listen to the rest of the sentence in the interview. That explains that we decided to invest in services, invest in support for Canadians, service that will help, like dental care. 2 million seniors have signed up to dental care. Over 100,000 have already obtained, since the 1st of May, dental care. Over 10,000 dentists have already registered and signed up, but the Conservative Party continues to be against dental care and to discourage dentists from registering. We are here to help Canadians. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Now, I understand the Prime Minister's logic. It causes inflation if the government spends money by directly sending checks to Canadians. But if they send it to fund red tape, it doesn't cause bureaucracy, apparently, Mr. Speaker, unless it comes with shattered promises and unrendered services, Mr. Speaker. It's true what the Prime Minister said. Finally, spending money that we don't have adds to the inflationary fire. Will he finally recognise that it's time for a common-sense plan, dollar-for-dollar approach to repair the budget and reduce inflation? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the Conservative Party voted against dental care in the name of inflation. They also voted against dental care for vulnerable people that haven't, for some of them, who haven't gone to the dentist for sometimes decades. Is that inflation? No, it's not. It's help for Canadians that are finding it very hard to pay for groceries, for example, who are concerned with the cost of living. We are sending direct aid, and the Conservatives are blocking it as much as possible. That's what it means to be here for Canadians.
Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has had a revelation. In an interview with the Halifax Chronicle Herald, he told how he responded to people asking for him to spend even more government money. And he said, and I quote, "As soon as you do that, inflation goes up by exactly the same amount." Oh. Right? Oh. Right. Why didn't I think of that? My goodness. Spending money you don't have actually causes inflation. If he's in the middle of having epiphanies, has he also realized that budgets don't balance themselves?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservative Party has been using that approach about concerns on inflation to stand against things like national food programs for kids or dental care for seniors. They have stood and objected against and even campaigned against dental care for seniors over the past many months. But we've delivered to over 100,000 seniors of the 2 million who've already registered for dental care the support that they hadn't gotten in years or even decades. But he stands against it with some made-up excuse around inflation when delivering services delivers for Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
He calls his own words a made-up excuse, Mr. Speaker. You can't make this stuff up. He said that when people ask him, "Can you send us more benefits or send us an extra $1,000 a month?" Well, he responds, "As soon as you do that, inflation goes up by exactly the same amount."
Oh, boy.
Right?
Right. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, that is exactly why over the past years we've been focused on bringing down inflation by supporting Canadians, and it months, Mr. Speaker, inflation has been down in the Bank of Canada target range, while we continue to increase supports for Canadians, increase dental care for Canadians with Conservatives that campaigned against, supports for senior supports for young people, increased investments in childcare, bringing childcare fees down to $10 a day. These are the investments we're making that do not add to inflation, but add to Canadians' well-beings as they're making ends meet. That's what we stand for, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, he finally, for once, thought about monetary policy. He said as soon as you spend more, inflation goes up by exactly the same amount. Right. And he is right for once. But repeating the same costly promises that he has already broken does not change that fundamental monetary rule. So will the Prime Minister acknowledge that, yes, the economy is about numbers, that people pay their rent in numbers, their gas in numbers, their groceries in numbers, and that the numbers are too high?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Fundamental difference in perspective between the Conservatives and this Liberal government. The macroeconomic situation of Canada is one of the best in the G7, one of the best in the world. And the independent credit rating agencies continue to give us AAA scores. The federal government is doing well, but Canadians need support. So we are choosing to deliver supports to Canadians with this solid fiscal position. Dental care, a national food policy, national disability benefits, help for housing and investments in the kind of supports for Canadians that he has stood against every step of the way, Mr. Speaker.
À cause de l'incompétence.
Because of this Prime Minister's incompetence and the incompetence of the Liberal Mayor of Montreal, the time one has to wait for a building permit has doubled and rents have tripled. In Ville-Marie, the Mayor of Montreal's municipal riding, it takes 540 days to get a building permit. What is the Prime Minister doing? He simply gives her $95 million more to build bureaucracy and red tape. Why not impose financial penalties on municipal politicians who are hindering the construction of housing? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, instead of targeting elected officials, as the Leader of the Opposition is doing, we are choosing to invest to reduce bureaucracy and red tape, to accelerate processes. And that is exactly what we are doing through our 179 agreements to accelerate housing that we've signed with municipalities from coast to coast to coast. This to deliver more housing more quickly. These are agreements that the Leader of the Opposition wants to simply cancel, and that will not help building faster housing, and that's not what we saw when he was Minister for Housing. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Housing costs half of what it does now. The Prime Minister not only doubled the cost of housing, he also disperses amounts to build more red tape that blocks construction. I have a common sense plan in Bill C-356 that will be voted upon this afternoon, that will cut taxes on construction, that will sell federal land and buildings to build housing, and that will also give significant bonuses to municipalities who streamline housing more rapidly. Will they vote for more housing? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we have a concrete approach. We work hand in hand with municipalities and provinces. We invest in building more housing in the most comprehensive and ambitious way. Contrary to this member, when he was Minister for Housing under the Harper government, he built 6 affordable housing units for Canadians, and that's not the kind of approach that will help. The plan that he's proposed is very, very weak, according to experts that have analysed it. We have a concrete plan, and he refuses to invest to help Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
When I was a minister, we built close to 200,000 housing and apartment units. The average rent was $973, half of what it is today. He works in partnership with municipal officials to double the cost of building a house. My common sense approach will increase housing, will give a bonus to municipalities that go beyond an increase of 15% in building houses. If not, they'll be penalized. Why should we not pay for results? Are they going to pay for more bureaucracy or for more results? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we are undertaking efforts to put an end to the housing crisis through an achievable and ambitious plan. Now let us talk about experts. They said that his bill was a very flaccid approach to housing with many loopholes. That's why the opposition leader did not want to have a debate on his non-plan. He doesn't want to debate it because he lost 800,000 apartment units when he was Minister for Housing, and he only built 6 affordable housing units. I would like to ask all members to please not take the floor when I have not been recognized by the Speaker. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
When I was housing minister, we built almost 200,000 houses and apartments, with the average rent being $973 for a one-bedroom apartment. But this Prime Minister is not worth the cost of housing, which has doubled 9 years after he and the NDP took power. What is he doing about it? He's giving $500 million to the Mayor of Toronto, who has just jacked up home building taxes by 20%. Why does he reward local government gatekeepers that block the homes that Canadians need?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are leading on the efforts to solve this housing crisis with a plan that is ambitious and concrete. Meanwhile, after having his housing bill panned by experts as being, quote, exceptionally weak response to the housing crisis riddled with loopholes, the Conservative leader chose to repeatedly delay debate in this House since October on his bill. That's because he just doesn't care. When he was minister, he lost 800,000 affordable apartments and only built 6 affordable homes.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Actually, the number is closer to 200,000, but the Prime Minister's never been very good with numbers, right? So the Prime Minister cites the government-funded bureaucrats and liberal academics to bolster his approach, which has doubled housing costs in just 9 years, partly because he gives money to municipalities and politicians like Winnipeg, where they just blocked 2,000 homes right next to a government-funded transit station built for those homes. Why won't he accept my common sense plan to give bonuses to those municipalities that permit more building and penalties to those that stand in the way?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we criticize rightly the Leader of the Opposition, who, when he was housing minister, only built 6 affordable homes for Canadians across the country. But it is understandable, Mr. Speaker, because he was part of a government that took the federal government out of the building of affordable housing. They chose that the federal government had nothing to do with housing across the country. That's why for 10 years of non-involvement of the federal government, that leaves echoes. We've stepped up and invested in communities, invested in partnerships. We're getting the homes built. We're delivering for Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Sure. Housing costs have doubled since he became Prime Minister. They were half when I was housing minister. Housing costs have gone up 40% faster than wages, a bigger gap than in any other G7 country. Why? Because he's building bureaucracy and not homes. Why won't he accept my common sense plan to require municipalities permit 15% more building, sell off 6,000 federal buildings to build homes, and cut taxes so builders can build?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, just like when he was housing minister, his solution is to do less to help Canadians, to invest less in supporting municipalities as they build housing, to get out of the way and leave Canadians to fend for themselves. That is his political philosophy. It is a political philosophy. It's just not the one that supports Canadians. It's not the one that is delivering for Canadians as we step up with the most ambitious and achievable housing plan this country has ever seen. We will continue to be there to invest in housing accelerators. We will be there to continue to take the GST off of purpose-built apartments. We will be there for Canadians.
Not a chance. That's what the president of the Residential Construction Council said when asked if this prime minister would keep his promise to build 3.9 million homes by 2031. So let's hear it from the prime minister. To reach that target, he'd have to build 550,000 homes per year. So yes or no, will the prime minister hit the target of 550,000 homes this year? Yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, Canada is facing a housing crisis, and we need to take real action towards it, which is what we've done with the most ambitious and achievable plan that this country's ever seen. But, Mr. Speaker, that's not to say we haven't had housing crises before. It is not to say we haven't solved housing crises before. At the end of World War II, there was a need for massive new housing, and Canada stepped up and got that housing built. Indeed, when the boomers came of age, there was a need for massive housing, and we made investments, and the federal government helped build housing across the country for boomers. We are doing that now as we build housing.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
That was a wonderful history lesson, except it didn't answer the question. He promised he'd lower housing costs in 2015. He doubled them. He promised he'd double home building. It actually went down and is still dropping. But now he's promising 3.9 million brand new homes by 2031. That means he'd have to build 550,000 this year and every year. So once again, will the Prime Minister keep his promise to build 550,000 homes this year? Yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader opposite speaks of 2015. Well, we took office with a commitment to get this government back, the federal government back in the business of building housing. We launched a national housing strategy in 2017 that put 2.5 million Canadians into new or refurbished homes, and we've continued to invest ever since. We're building homes on public lands. We're converting underused federal offices into homes. We're taxing vacant lands to incentivize construction. We're building apartments, bringing rents down with top-ups to the apartment construction loan program. We're scaling up modular housing. We're launching Canada Builds to lead a Team Canada effort to build more homes and more, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable chef de l'opposition.
The question was not how quickly he could read off talking points written for him by his staff. The question was whether he's going to break yet another housing promise. Remember, he promised he'd lower housing costs, he doubled them. He promised he'd double the number of homes built, they went down. Now he's promising 3.9 million new homes by 2031. That means 550,000 new homes this and every year. Will he keep that promise? Yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition's criticism is there's too many measures in our housing plan. Housing should be solved by a simple one-size-fits-all solution, according to the Leader of the Opposition. That's perhaps how he managed to build only 6 affordable homes when he was Minister of Housing. Because yes, we have a broad range of initiatives that are delivering on housing, like topping up the Housing Accelerator Fund with $400 million, a new $6 billion Canada Housing Infrastructure Fund to help communities build. We're leveraging transit funding to build more homes. We're launching a housing design catalog. We're incentivizing more skilled trade workers.
The Right Honourable, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
He's announcing a catalog, everybody. Hey, right on. Give him a round of applause. Come on, give him a round of applause. You can't afford a home. You might end up in a tent. Your rent is doubled. But hey, you've got a brand new catalog. Mr. Speaker, the question was, will he build 550,000 new homes, yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
He mentioned the history lesson. Well, if he was housing minister, he should have known that the way we solved the housing crisis after World War II was by putting forward a catalog of homes that builders could access to build extremely rapidly right across the country. So yes, that's one of the measures we're bringing back. And his mockery of concrete initiatives that are going to deliver for Canadians is exactly what's wrong with his approach. He'd rather mock and insult than actually roll up his sleeves and get solutions built for Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition, this morning a shocking article in La Presse says that children escorted by police to leave daycares because of homeless people and injection sites next to them. I'm quoting the director of the daycare. It's not normal to have to walk through with policemen around a daycare. Why, with the support of the Bloc, is this Prime Minister putting our children in danger by allowing violent repeat offenders take drugs on our streets? The Right Honourable Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, nurses, hospital personnel, and all patients and Canadians should be able to feel safe in their workplaces and in hospitals. This is our government has supported $1 billion in the healthcare system to make sure Canadians have access to the best healthcare possible. The difference between us and the Conservative Party is that while they seek to criminalize those who are most vulnerable, drug addicts, we are rolling up our sleeves and working at all levels of government to resolve this crisis. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Speaker, he didn't hear the question. It was in terms of daycares. Yes, because of the decriminalization in BC, nurses had to breathe in crack and meth fumes. But now I'm talking about Montreal, where his policies led to the liberation of violent criminals and drugs in the streets next to a daycare. Once again, my question, why is the Bloc and the Liberals, why are they not accepting our common sense plan to eliminate drugs and put criminals in prison? The Right Honourable Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, what the Conservative leader is proposing is a step back to policies of the Harper years, which failed in the fight against drug addiction. And even one of the government's Harper advisors recognizes that it was a clear failure. We're going to continue to be here to make sure, assure security for everyone, including for children in daycares, with a compassion-based approach, health-based approach, and keeping people safe. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Many Canadians want to go back to the days when children didn't need police officers at their daycares, Mr. Speaker. But after 9 years, the Bloc Liberal government is not worth the cost. The Bloc voted for $500 billion in inflationary bureaucratic spending and centralizing spending. This has caused 60% of consumers to say that they are in stress. When will the Bloc change its tax and inflationary spending on the backs of Quebecers? The Right Honourable Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, the Conservative leader has just explained that his approach is austerity. Austerity for a government that would make it hard for people. We have chosen to invest to help Canadians. For example, help seniors with dental care. And since the beginning of May, there have been more than 100,000 seniors able to obtain dental care across our country. This is an initiative that helps keep costs down and take care of vulnerable people. And the Conservative Party will continues to vote against it and even tried to block it across the country. This is shameful. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
About austerity, well, I think that the Bransfield family of 4 in Calgary can tell him all about austerity, because that's what they're living right now because of his housing hell, his carbon taxes, and his inflation. They said, close quote, "We're having to choose between paying a bill or getting food, and that can be really hard. It makes things really difficult. And I just don't see an end in sight. Will the Prime Minister accept our common sense plan to axe the tax, fix the budget, build the homes, so that the Bransfield family and so many others can eat, heat, and house themselves?"
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I disagree with the Leader of the Opposition who wants to take away the Canada carbon rebate checks that arrive 4 times a year in the bank accounts of the Bransfield families. Indeed, 8 out of 10 Canadians, according to the Parliamentary Budget Officer, are better off with the Canada carbon rebate as we fight climate change with the price on pollution. 8 out of 10 Canadian families from coast to coast in the jurisdictions where the carbon price applies are better off. That includes, most likely, the Bransfield family, and we will continue to be there for them.
After 9 years, the Bloc Liberals aren't worth the cost. The Bloc has not only voted for $500 billion in appropriations that are centralizing, bureaucratic, and inflationary, but they want to radically increase taxes on gas and diesel for Quebecers in the regions. Unlike the Conservatives, who want to cut taxes, we are proposing to give a tax vacation for Quebecers on gas and diesel. Will the Prime Minister accept my common sense plan to reduce gas by 10 cents a litre for this summer? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. The Conservative leader has a problem. His messages don't reach Quebec. Quebecers don't want to hear his ideas taking a step back in the fight against climate change. It's something that Quebecers understand very well. So his solutions are attacking the Bloc or Quebec members or Quebecers themselves to try to take steps back in the fight against climate change. It will fail because the Conservative leader does not understand Quebecers and does not understand, in fact, most Canadians that know that climate change is real and we need to tackle it. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Speaker. When Conservatives were in power, the Bloc was almost eliminated because we reduced government and allowed Quebec to have autonomy. Quebecers were in charge of their destiny, but they have centralizing powers and policies, and that is why these 2 parties are cooperating together. Will he finally accept to unite the country with a federal government that is smaller, so we can have Quebec and Quebecers that are stronger? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, if he knew history, he'd know that the Bloc has existed because of the Conservative Party. But let's put this aside, Mr. Speaker, to underscore the reality that we'll always be here to defend Quebecers. We'll always be here to work. Order. Order, please. I would ask the member for Marc-Aurèle-Fortin. Sorry. No, not that member. I would ask the member to continue their discussions behind the curtains, please. I will ask the Prime Minister to start again from the top. Mr. Speaker, we've just seen, finally, after months, the Conservative caucus in Quebec wake up and finally talk. The reality is that when we talk about the environment, the Conservatives in Quebec say nothing. When we talk about the rights of women, the Quebec Conservatives say nothing. And we have seen shameful behavior from the Conservative caucus in Quebec, from the Conservatives, because they refuse to stand up for Quebec values. They tackle other Quebec members. This is shameful. They should apologize to all Quebecers. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Mr. Speaker, he has just gone off the rails. He's lost control. He is so angry. Why? Because he's just learned that Quebecers, the Quebec Liberals, are turning their backs on him. Why? Because he has there's a common sense Conservative team that will cut taxes, build homes, fix the budget, and stop crime. Why not accept this? There's still time to accept this common sense plan. Give people a tax break so Quebecers can have a tax-free vacation. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. True, Mr. Speaker, sometimes I do stand up as a Quebecer to defend the values of my nation, of my country. These values as a Quebecer and a proud Canadian. We want to defend the environment, tackle climate change, protect the rights of women. Yes, I will always be passionate when it's time to defend fundamental rights for Canadians. I'm here to do this. Unfortunately, the Conservative Party continues to propose Quebecers a step back, and in terms of climate change, they're denying it. They're taking a step back in terms of the rights of women. That's not what Canadians and other Quebecers want.